Hi to everybody joining us this morning. We're going to make a start. So thank you to everybody who has joined today's roundtable session. We're delighted to be able to work today with our corporate partners, Howden, Howden formerly known as Ensley Insurance. We're delighted to be joined today by Billy Fitzjohn, who is the Associate Director, and Ben Wigington, who is the Senior Client Executive. Just a couple of bits of housekeeping. If everybody can keep their microphones on mute during the session, just in case there's any background noise so we can hear clearly. There is the chat functionality, so please feel free to use that during the call. And if anybody has got any questions, feel free to raise your hands and we'll come back to you and answer any questions in due course. As I've already mentioned, we have got the session that is being recorded today. Slides will also be available for members to view afterwards through the Cubo Knowledge Hub. So without further ado, I will hand over to Billy and Ben to lead today's session on exploring students' happiness regarding the Happiness Index. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Welcome, everyone. We're looking forward to sharing this unique research into student happiness with you all. I want to say just firstly, though, thank you for taking the time to spend this time with us today. We know how incredibly busy the sector is and busy your roles are day to day. So we really do value and appreciate the time you're taking with us today. Just want to start by adding a little bit further to Sarah introducing us really. Who are Howden and who are we? So Howden, previously Ensley Insurance, many of you will be familiar with us over that time. We were actually founded 60 years to this year as Ensley, and we became part of the Howden Group almost 5 years ago. Howden is one of the largest insurance brokers in the world, but we're particularly proud that it's one of the largest employee-owned businesses here in the UK. And now being Howden Education effectively, we've now got sort of scale that meets our education specialisms that help us unlock new solutions and services for our clients in the education sector. For any of you that are rugby fans out there as well, this year Howden will be the main sponsor of the British and Irish Lions on both the men's and the women's teams. As a proud Welshman, I'm not too hopeful of Welsh representation on the Lions tour, but it is certainly something very exciting for us all here at Howden. We've also been a proud partner of Cubo for over a decade, working closely with Sarah and the team and many of you on a regular basis with very different services and support functions. We support accommodation providers, universities with insurance, risk management and well-being. And really, today's research is one part of the insight-led approach that we take to the sector. We're very proud to make sure that we are conducting research and thorough sort of investigations really into the sector to make sure that our products and services are fit for students and for our education partners that support those students every single day. So just to introduce myself, my name is Billy. I've been with Howden, previously Ensley, for 14 years. My background before that was working in a university, and before that I worked at a students' union, and that's where I sort of started to understand the education sector beyond being a student myself, and then joined Ensley, now Howden, and I look after our teams that work with education providers from universities through to schools. And I'll just pass to Ben to introduce himself.
Yeah, cheers, Bill. My name's Ben. Recognise a lot of the names popping up today, so hopefully some of you know me. But I've worked at Ensley, now Howden, for 6 years, coming up to 6 years. And I work in our renewals team, so looking after student assistance programme and the contents policies for accommodation providers as well. And like Bill, very similar backgrounds in student unions and universities as well. Cheers, Bill.
Well, so just going to the next slide. So our Student Happiness Index, this is the fourth edition, fourth year of us producing this report, and we're going to share some of the results with you today. The full report is due to be published next week, and you'll get the full report in the coming days shared with you, which has extensive details around this. And we really conduct this survey to understand students' challenges, concerns, motivations, and their aspirations for now and for the future. And as I sort of mentioned, really, it's really core to everything that we do to help inform those products and services. Just going to talk a little bit about methodology. So fourth year of doing it, and we continue to look to expand in how we do this, but over 2,300 students surveyed. We conducted this in December just gone. Really pleased that for the first time since we created this insight, we have included further education students. So those students who are currently in college that may be future university students in the coming years. We have surveyed UK and international students as well. And we are able to sort of break down results into different demographics of students, or different results by location or type of accommodation. So, you know, what you're going to kind of hear today really is sort of the high level results. So when that report comes out, if you would like to discuss any elements of it further, or perhaps look to understand a particular demographic of student or location, we're more than happy to support with that. So just reach out to us. I'm just going to pass back to Ben, who's going to talk about how we break these results down into various pillars.
Yeah, cheers, Bill. So Billy said the survey's definitely top level, and we've broken down the presentation today in a similar way to the surveyors. So you can see the 5 key pillars that we'll be running through between Billy and I. So happiness and mental health, enjoyment versus expectations, student safety, which was a new element to this year's survey, biggest current concerns, and the future and life after education. So what students are expecting in the future, and what they're telling us are their main concerns for moving on from education. So the first pillar is happiness and mental health. So this year we saw a student happiness score of 44%, and that is an increase from last survey that was at 36%. And that is calculated by taking the percentage of unhappy students, told us that unhappy on the scale, away from the percentage of happy students, again on a kind of sliding scale. And whilst that initially seems really encouraging, quite a percentage increase, there were kind of 3 key stats that jumped out at this part as well. So 43% of students agreed that mental health has worsened in the past year. 77% of the LGBTQ plus community said they've struggled in one way or another with their mental health in the last year. And 67% of international students said they have felt happy, compared to UK students just at 59%. And obviously that is quite an increase, quite a variance from international to UK students. And again, that is something that we did see as a trend throughout the survey, and it will come up in a few of the slides as well. The next part, we asked students the things that help them improve their happiness. As you can see here, around the edges, the 8% said physical exercise, doing well in their studies, and being independent. And in the middle, the 2 highest scoring ones are socializing with friends and meeting new friends. So talking a lot about socializing. And again, this is something throughout the full report you'll see. However, given that those are the 2 things they scored the highest, they also tell us it was almost half of all students told us that they've been socializing less in the past year, and mainly putting that down to financial constraints as well, and the affordability of going out, meeting new people, and socializing. So the discussion points here are there opportunities for institutions, for all of us, to create socializing chances for students that ultimately are cost effective and helps them to meet new people and socialize with their existing friendship groups. back
So
to you,
I
Billy.
nearly went and Sean then.
so happiness and mental health. So are students accessing professional support? So 41% of students have actually accessed professional support in the last year. That is up on prior year from 34%. And interestingly, the year before that was sort of mid-20s. So more students are gaining professional support for their mental health. The next area is around that level of support. 1 in 2 students would agree that their college or university is providing the right level of mental health and well-being support. And finally, around awareness and accessibility, 56% of students know how to access that support at their university or college, with just under 1 in 5 saying they strongly agree. I think what's interesting about this particular area is when you look at students in further education, so what's potentially coming through the system to university level, there really isn't much difference in it. So pretty much 40% of further education students are also looking to professional support. And 1 and 2 of them are agreeing that actually their college already provides the right level of support, and they've got that strong awareness of how to get that support. So that's a really interesting sort of piece of insight that's coming through, really. There's not much difference there. We're going to go on to the second pillar now, which is around enjoyment and expectation. So over a third of students, and again in both the university but also college sector, say that they have enjoyed that experience more than they expected. But a third of students are saying that they enjoyed it or have enjoyed it less than they expected. And finally, international students from the EU have enjoyed their course less than they expected compared to those outside of the EU at 27%. So it feels like sort of students within the EU, there's, I guess, a bit more of a misalignment between what they're expecting and what they're getting as an experience in terms of that feedback. Wanted to sort of ask the question, and feel free to pop it in the chat or pop your hand up to share that experience with other members, is that management of expectations pre-arrival to university. Are there any sort of key initiatives or tips that you would give to ensure that those expectations are really set out clearly from the start and managed?
Everyone's gone a bit shy, haven't they?
Yeah.
Never made me get people to put their hands up.
No.
If there's no.
Yeah, no worries. If there is anyone who wants to raise their hand or pop something in the chat, but if not, we can move on.
I'm hoping someone's frantically typing, but maybe not.
Do we have? Oh no, we have someone joining. I thought that was a hand. Got excited.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to. Oh, there we go.
There you go. That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah, I've got a few things coming through. So we've got Harry at Loughborough with accommodation. We would set expectations about sharing a bathroom, as we only have a number of limited en suites. Online inductions, star res in the case of ARU. That's from Paul. We also have Amy around pre-arrival webinars, direction to social media channels to see what unit accommodation is like before coming. Clear communication about arrivals, presentations in open days. That's really interesting, actually, about sort of when we think about pre-arrival, actually thinking about that very much being from the open day itself, as opposed to when the application has already been approved. It's a really good point there. And just got a few final ones. Ewan, we host webinars and Q&As, and Simon facilitated online groups to demystify before they arrive, dedicated part of our website, online welcome, induction. And GDPR, very important point, Cara, and not almost the most interesting or fun topic, but definitely one important for parents around sort of that accessibility as well. Thank you for sharing that all. I think we'll move on now to the next pillar, which, as Ben mentioned, this is a new pillar for us around student safety, and certainly something that we would like to expand further on, particularly when it comes to accommodation.
Cheers, Billy. Yeah, so yeah, like I said, like Bill said, a new section, and I think when we've sat down and looked at this, there's a lot more that we want to take away for the future reports. So if anybody's got any ideas of things I'd like to see on student safety more of, once you've received a report, absolutely please do reach out. From this year, though, we saw that 85% of students said they felt safe when they've been on their university or college campus. And almost a quarter of students, 23%, said they have had possessions stolen whilst at university or college. You can see a slight increase with EU internationals who've had possessions stolen. And obviously from our role at Howden, something we're really familiar with the contents insurance. We've paid out over £1 million in claims for theft since 2023, and fairly regular occurrence, unfortunately. And we know accommodation teams especially do a lot try and increase safety using latest technology or that kind of thing. But obviously 85% feels good, but obviously we'd all strive for that to be 100, I'm sure. Now if we drill down a little bit further into student accommodation specifically, you can see on the screen 39% of students say they've had troubles with their accommodation. 39% of students said they've struggled with shared living in the last 12 months. So in one way or another, sharing with other people. Obviously, it's a new experience for a lot of people, so maybe that's kind of where we'd expect it, maybe not. 46% of international students have struggled with shared living in the last 12 months. So quite a jump from 39% of all, up to specifically international students at 46%. And I'm not sure if any institutions from the southeast are on, but students feel safest in the southeast in your accommodation at 64%. I won't tell you who's the other side of that scale, just in case. But yeah, so some real challenges around safety. And obviously there's discussions around what safety means to students as well. Obviously that word can be interpreted differently. And obviously a lot of work to do if 39% are struggling with shared living. And again, does that come down to what we just discussed around expectations and before arriving? Okay, Billy, back to you.
So on to our next pillar, which is what are the biggest concerns facing students at the moment? And before sort of sharing the results with you on this, we wanted to get your view. Again, feel free to use the chat, but if you scan that QR code, there's a small poll that we can see what members' feeds are around what do you think are the biggest concerns faced by students today. Yeah, sorry, Patricia's just popped it in the chat as well. If you've not got your mobile with you and you want to just complete the poll online, it's just gone in the chat as well as a link.
Yeah, I'll just give it a minute and then I'll swap over so everybody can see the results coming in as well.
So got a lot of responses there. Cost of living, money worries, mental health and loneliness really sort of lead in there. And I think, you know, very much, if we go back to the slides, please, Ben. So we ask students to effectively pick up to 5 areas that are their biggest concerns, and then we will later share with you their sort of their top concerns for the future as well. But as you can see, very much aligned to what you've fed back there, around cost of living, money worries. It is actually out of 4 editions of the happiness index now, mental health was the top concern in the first 2 years, and cost of living and money worries is the top concern for this year and the year prior. So we'll delve into that in a bit more detail. I think really interestingly is when we look at level of sleep compared to last year, really sort of starting to see a lot of students feedback their concerns around sleep. I was recently speaking with a number of universities and we're talking about this, and you know, from a personal level, I guess we're becoming more and more aware of our sleep. I know I've got a smartwatch, and with a 2-year-old at home, my watch is telling me every day whether I'm tired or not when it comes to sleep. And I wonder if that the sort of the use of technology alongside that is having an effect there. But students are clearly looking and concerned for that around sort of sleep hygiene, which comes into the broader well-being picture. And I think finally, when you look at location, every location listed cost of living as their top concern, apart from one, which was Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland students listed accommodation as their top concern. And I know we spent some time with members in Ireland over the last year, so it's been really insightful to get sort of Irish universities' view on accommodation and some of those challenges around sort of demand versus supply of accommodation in that region. So let's kind of go into the detail of what is actually the biggest concerns with cost of living and money worries. So 55% of students are saying that they either need to get a job or increase the amount of hours they are working alongside their studies. That is a material difference to year prior, which was about 1 in 3 students. And currently over 90% of students rely on a parent, guardian or carer for financial support, which is probably not a huge surprise, but half of them are worried that they're going to have to turn to even more support financially from their parents, guardians or carers in the next 12 months. And just finally, there's some quotes there from students who participated in this research. Just on to the next slide, 43% of students are struggling to afford food and basic essentials. That is the same as prior year, so we're not really seeing an improvement there with students around that. And over a third of students are actually now missing lectures and lessons to take on paid work. And I think we've done other research in this space, and certainly sort of what was coming through the comments of the sort of more qualitative research in the index was students being more concerned with that day-to-day living cost as opposed to the sort of structural debt of going to university and the debt that they will leave with. There is an organisation many of you will be familiar with called Black Bullion, who also do a student money report. Would encourage you to have a look at that, because that goes into even further depth around sort of cost of living and money worries of students. So our final pillar is the future and life after education. So there is optimism for the future, although still effectively, as Ben said at the start, more than 1 in 2 students would not consider themselves as happy, which is a challenging statistic. Actually, 57% of students are optimistic for the future, and that is a big jump from last year, where 38% of students effectively said that they feel optimistic. But there are some real uncertainties for the future. So 40% of students feel prepared for their financial future. This next one really is one of the most shocking stats I can see really in the index around loneliness, and many of you fed that back on that poll just a moment ago. 46%, 1 in 2 students are feeling lonely most of the time. I'm really interested to know what is driving that and how we can help combat that. And 1 in 2 students are worried that their mental health will worsen in the next 12 months. And as Ben said earlier, there are sort of cohorts of students where there are bigger concerns than others for that. So in summary, really, there are signs of optimism. The happiness score is the strongest it's ever been. When we started this research 4 years ago, just over 1 in 5 students considered themselves as happy. Obviously, we had the pandemic and would have been a large contribution to that. And it does feel we're sort of moving away from some of those challenges that we're experiencing there. But there are sort of new and emerging threats, really. So I think the key things for us to call out is students in further education and higher education are providing similar feedback. So the outputs we've shared with you today across both sectors, it is very much that students in college are giving similar insights to their peers in higher education. So we're not really seeing more alarming trends in that area or greater improved statistics, which suggest that these areas will improve over the next few years. More people are accessing professional mental health support, but concerns for their future remains in place. And just mentioning those sort of underlying challenges, finally, financial concerns, career and academic prospects, and safety and loneliness really being a sort of underlying concern and challenge that seems to be growing. So as mentioned, we'd be delighted to share the full report with you in the coming days. If anyone would like to discuss those findings in greater detail, we'd be more than happy to do that. I mentioned that we support many universities with insurance and well-being. We do have some videos of clients sharing their experiences of how our services have helped in some of these areas that we'd be glad to share. But we've also got some great video content of students via our college partners talking about their well-being and mental health and happiness that would be really insightful to share with you as well. So look out for those in the coming days. And we'll pause for questions there if anyone has any, and just a general discussion. Amy, McCarthy Edwards, if possible, a geographical breakdown of some of these stats would be fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. The report does go into geographical breakdown, so we will share with that with you in the next few days. So particularly around safety of accommodation, but also a number of other areas as well. And Amy, do feel free to drop us an email if you want sort of even more detail on that. We'd be more than happy to talk about it with you. We've got Michelle. Is there verbatim comments where students suggest what might be helpful to support them in these challenges? Yeah, so we did ask students to provide sort of more kind of qualitative feedback, really, as well as answering sort of the questions. I think one area is around that sort of socializing and meeting new friends and having opportunities to do that, and engage with other people and other peers, both in a online way but also an in-person community. But Michelle, I'd be happy to again sort of have a greater look at those and share those with you if you like, where you can see some of the comments, because they're anonymized. So we'll take that away and share that on the follow-up email with you as well. I can see a number of people liking that, so it looks like that would be helpful for many people. So Patricia, I guess if that's something we can pull together as part of the follow-up report for Cubo members, that would be useful. Any other questions at all?
Everyone's gone very, very quiet. It's been really interesting to find out kind of how the report is developed over the years, and obviously with the input of the details from Effie, it's really interesting. I think Anne's got her hand up. Leave hand to speak.
I was just wondering if the report broke down the accommodation, whether it was university owned accommodation or whether it was private accommodation that the problem was with.
Yeah, and absolutely, yeah, it does. So type of accommodation and where you live, we can look at that. There wasn't sort of jumping out any major differences in some of these areas. But by all means, if there is, when we send the report to you, if there is a question where you go, I'd like to maybe understand how do students in shared housing feel versus halls of residence to that question, more than happy to kind of look at the data for you and give you the answer at that level.
Thank you.
I think, Sarah, when we send the email, I know our emails are on the slide, but if you wouldn't mind sharing Ben and I's email with Anne and others, you can feel free to email us directly any of those additional insights you want. Any other questions at all? Thank you, Anne.
I think everyone's gone quiet, haven't they there? Well, yeah. We have recorded today's session, so obviously if there's anything that we have covered during the process of the last sort of 40 minutes, anybody wants to go back and revisit, that will be available for members to go back to you shortly. Nisa, do you want to come in?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say this has been really interesting. Sorry, I've just seen that Billy's just shared William's email. I just thought it would be a good idea to share your email anyway, so that the participants after this call, if they wanted to reach out to both of you and ask further questions, etc., then they could do that. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, absolutely. We do plan to run this survey every year, so we will be doing it again later this year. So we really want to take a collaborative approach with people. If anyone has suggestions on additional questions to ask in the future, different additional areas to delve into, we'd be really glad to have your insight and feedback there. More than happy to sort of shape areas with you in the future and again expand it. Hence why we've got many clients we support in the college sector, where they were looking for sort of further education insights, and similar in schools, a bit trickier to get sort of pupil feedback, but we are looking at that around sort of schools when it comes to mental health, well-being and happiness and what's coming through there. I think there's a real opportunity to sort of connect the sectors together around happiness and mental health. So universities, colleges, schools, and we absolutely would love to play a part in that. Oh, a few more questions.
I've got Katrina's got a hand up there as well.
Hi there. I also found that really interesting. I just wondered if there was any plans to share any of the results with the students, to maybe try and encourage people to take part in future surveys as well, but also so that they can see what the sort of general feeling is, and if they don't agree with it, like I said, it maybe just encourages them to come forward in future.
Yeah, thank you, Katrina. So yeah, absolutely, we do are able to sort of share this with sort of students that we're able to communicate with, but also through our partners. So this report, will be shared with you, and happy for people to share that with their students. And if you want a sort of additional tools to be able to do that, emails or social media, that can be arranged as well. But also we've got later this year, very early in development, but we actually have a student event taking place in October this year, which is a follow-on from an event we did last year in Cheltenham called Young Minds Matter. So if you're familiar with Cheltenham Literature Festival, which it's one of the large festivals that Cheltenham puts on, there was a Young Minds Matter event where we had a panel of sort of mental health speakers, and also young people who are campaigning in that space, have a pop-up tent at the festival that Howden sponsored to have that conversation around mental health, well-being and happiness. And we're actually looking to take that to another level this year, where we have more students participating in that, but it's also hopefully something that we can live stream. So we will send that to all of you as Cubo members as well, because would be happy to have you involved in person or sort of as a stream, so you can get involved in that side of things. And I'm sure we'll plan to share some of these results with that panel event. So the student voice is so important, isn't it? So we want to make sure we keep developing that.
That's brilliant. Also noticed we've got, apologies if I pronounce this incorrectly, Mindaugas.
I am almost correctly. I'm Mindaugas, thank you. I just wanted to inquire. This survey is really interesting and informative. In regards to, for example, for safety or loneliness, is there any other insights? What actually is causing the safety concerns? Is that the lack of the university providing them safety measures? Our measures are not in place, or is that bad practices by the students that expose them to a theft or something like this? Such extra details would give a better insight on where we could improve or up the game, or provide maybe educational materials.
Yeah, totally. No, thank you. I think on the student safety side of things, that is a new sort of pillar that we introduced this year. And we definitely need to draw down on the detail of that even further going forward. I think the question was to these students, how safe do you feel? Not exactly word for word, but effectively that. And I think we've already had some feed and reflecting ourselves on how safe do you feel can mean a number of different things. It might be sort of physical safety of where you are, but it could mean something different. If someone asks you that, well, it's quite broad, isn't it, I suppose, as a question. So we would really like to kind of develop that set of insights even further going forward. But I think there is a layer underneath that of stuff that we can share for this year's report around types of accommodation or location, as Ben has already mentioned, and maybe to give us more insights around what's driving that. But at this stage, we've just got the sort of the headline response really around how safe they feel on campus or in accommodation. So more work for us to do there, I think, is the answer there.
That's great. Ben shared the results from the survey from earlier as well, if anybody wanted to go back and revisit that. Has anybody else got any questions for Billy or Ben at all from today's session? That's gone very, very quiet. Well, thank you so much to Billy and Ben and the team at Howden for putting on this session. It's been really, really informative. As mentioned earlier, the report will be published next week, so that will be shared with members. A copy of today's recording will be available on the Cubo Knowledge Hub in the next couple of hours as well, if anybody wants to go back and revisit any parts of today's session to re-review any feedback that we had. But if anybody has, if there's no other questions, I think we will end the session there. And thank you again to Billy and Ben for today's session.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
everybody.
everyone.
No problem. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.